Welcome back, everyone, to bonus episode number 1. We're now heading into the second video, which is all about the CV writing process itself. So let's head on in to the second video. On to the first page then, and the key areas. You can see this CV I've knocked up quickly. You've got the profile at the top, your name, you've a contact phone number and an email, because you'll tend to be contacted via phone initially when setting up the interviews, etc., especially with any recruiting agent that's dealing with the hiring process. However, later on, if you do get the role, etc., they may email you and ask for more information, especially when sending you information for your interview. They'll probably email it to you. So make sure that you've got both there, a phone contact number and an email, and make sure that your email itself is a professional email, not some sort of jokey, funny or dodgy sounding email. Make sure it's on the level. Next, you have your profile. Now this is generally the very first area that an interviewer will read, and it gives them a sort of idea about you and also what you are looking for. So it needs to be short and sharp. Keep it to about 4 lines, as you can see there. It looks pretty good. 3 lines is looks a bit sparse. Any more than 4 lines you start to lose the reader's interest. So keep it at about 4 lines, as you can see there. So what I've done here is I've described myself very quickly, what I'm all about, learn new skills for SQL database technologies. So that's quite key. If you're going for a SQL role, you need to make sure that in your profile that is what you're all about and what you're after. This next sentence is looking for a new career to develop current SQL-based skills and advance into other areas of SQL Server. So that tells the reader that this is what I'm after. I want to move into this aspect of my career. And then you can write something to fill out the lines if needs be, fits well in any environment, etc., etc. Key things, however, is that part where you need to explain what you're actually looking for. That's the profile. We'll have a look in more detail on the next slide for that. Next section you've got is your key skills. So, first of all, confident in writing basic queries in Microsoft SQL Server, including joins and creating objects. Now you would have gone through all of that in your course, and with all the fantastic homework that you've been doing as well, you'll be super confident by now in writing those basic queries. So you can put those in as a key skill, which is fantastic. So if the job requires MS SQL Server, then you're in. Strong technical background, etc., etc. Write about 6 or 7 key skills in here. Obviously put in any Microsoft Office products that you are quite skilled on, whether you're an advanced level or working level knowledge, especially if the job description has got that as a requirement. Then put that in as a key skill. So what you're doing is basically trying to tailor your key skills, or at least 2 or 3 of them, to the actual job description that you're going for. So you need to bear that in mind. Don't list a whole lot of key skills that aren't even required. However, try and keep them related to the job description and any other key skills that you may think will benefit you in any interview you go for. Next, you're looking at your professional development. So if you've got any key sort of qualifications or certifications or diplomas, etc., in there that are applicable to the role itself in some way, shape or form, then get those in there. So I put in a Microsoft Technology Associate certification that I got, and put them in reverse chronological order as well. So latest at the top, going down. And if you've got any advanced Excel, why not get it in there? Definitely, it's a technical skill. You're going for a technical role, so put that one in there. Last but not least, and if you can fit it on the page itself, you're looking at the additional qualifications. So anything that you think is of benefit to you going for the interview, or a benefit potentially for the company when they hire you, not necessarily related to the role, but something that could really boost your chances during an interview. The interviewer might think, oh, he's got this additional qualification. This person's obviously interested in improving themselves, promoting, etc., etc. Get them in, but only if you think it will improve your chances at interview. Don't just stick hundreds of additional qualifications in there, like fly fishing professional or something like that. Doesn't really apply to the role, but keep it to the job itself. So that's an example of the first page. This page here is quite scant on detail, but it's very clear, very readable, and will give you a pretty good idea of what you should be putting in there. Let's have a look at a couple of profiles. So the first SQL based role I went for, the Data Migration Analyst, this was the profile I put in. So as you can see, the top line is quite similar to what you saw on the other page. I didn't have much actual working SQL knowledge or experience, so my main focus was to show that I had a special interest in SQL databases, and at the end I was looking for a new and exciting role in a SQL focused development or analytical field. So I played a lot on my ability to work as in a team or on my own without having to be supervised, for example, that I was very interested in SQL, and I had a working knowledge of SQL Server at that stage. Very little knowledge, to be honest with you, but it was a pretty good profile, and it obviously helped in landing me that first interview with them. A year later, when I went for my second SQL-based role as a Business Intelligence Analyst, as you can see, I had a very similar profile, but I changed things up a little bit, looking for an advanced role to improve on existing database development and administrational skills. So by then I had a lot of working knowledge. I'd done quite a lot by that stage, so I changed it up slightly. As you can see, the first sentence as well slightly changed. So although they're pretty much similar in structure, and a lot of the wording similar, I did tailor it for the role on what was required between the two. Let's cover a few top tips for you when writing your CV. The first one is that you absolutely need to tailor every CV to the role you are going for. By all means, write a generic CV, and then once you have a look at the job description, start tailoring it for that job description. Even if it's a few sentences here and there, key skills, for example, they're the most important things to sort of change to the job description. Make sure that they cover some of the requirements from that. Your profile as well, make sure you tweak that to sort of fall in line with the job description as much as you can. Secondly, don't bloat this first page. Keep out all the fluff and random stuff. You've got to keep it to the point, always on target, keep it lean, and basically Play around with the formatting if you can to squeeze it all in. Now that leads me on to point 3, spelling, grammar and formatting. Any spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, punctuation, etc. that's incorrect will be noticed straight away. And if you are going for any sort of coding based role where you're writing code, etc., that all relies on attention to detail. So you need to make sure that your CV, which is the first thing that an interviewer is going to see from you, is really, really sharp and perfect in terms of spelling, grammar and punctuation. On the formatting side, you need to make sure everything is crisp and clean, and that moves on to part 4. Leave out all the fancy stuff like colors, fancy formatting, all these sort of weird and wonderful fonts. Keep the fonts to Arial or Calibri, the common ones that you normally find when you fire up Word, for example. Just remember that most of the time an interviewer will print out your CV in black and white, so make sure you don't put any dark backgrounds against black writing, because it will tend to disappear. So make sure you keep things like underlining, italics, bold, colors, etc. to an absolute minimum. Best thing is to leave out color altogether, and remember to keep the font standard throughout. Yes, you might put headings slightly larger, but you need to make sure that you don't change things up size-wise, etc. all over the place, because then the CV looks like an absolute mess, looks like a little bit of a joke, and it won't do you any favors, that's for sure. Number 5 then, you need to make it easier for the reader to actually read your CV itself. So play around with the formatting, etc., the line spacing. Make sure you use bullet points for your lists, and just make sure that the reader can easily read it. Again, if you don't bloat the page with random fluff and have loads of writing to bore the reader with, it'll make it a lot easier for them. Play around with the formatting and see how you go. And lastly, try not to split sections or even paragraphs over 2 pages. So if you reach the end of one page and you've got one sentence popping up on the other page, try and then tweak maybe the font size. Try not to go below 12, for example, otherwise the writing gets pretty small and difficult to read. You can adjust the margins, make them wider, or just tweak the content itself a bit. Just make sure that you fit them all in neatly into one page. Now sometimes this is unavoidable, and that's fine, you can't do that, but especially with sections, or should I say paragraphs, try not to have one sentence on one page leading into another sentence on the other page itself. You might need to split sections, which is fine, but just make sure that you keep that to a minimum. And if it's avoidable, then do so. Make sure it's all neatly contained page by page. The second page then is all about your professional experience. So as you can see there, I've listed the company, and again this is in reverse chronological order, so your latest job or the one that you're still working in at the moment, put that in first. So I've put my job, the company I work for first, and then a very brief description of the company itself. Just a quick one-liner so that the reader has an idea what the industry you worked in or is working at the moment. They know roughly what that's all about. Even if you have to look on the internet and get an idea and put that in, but you should know what your company does. And then you put the position you held in the company and date it on the right. This is how I prefer to do it. When you started, and whether you're presently in that role or the date that you ended in that role. And then under that, you do 2 or 3 bits of information. Again, keep it as bullet points, nice and neatly there, talking about what you did in that role. And if you were promoted or you changed jobs within the same company, split those out like I've done there. And then, nice neat line separating the next role that we went on, that we had before that latest one. Again, formatting, spelling, grammar, etc., punctuation, absolutely key. Any errors will, of course, stand out like a sore thumb. So make sure you really go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Make sure that everything is 100%. A few tips for you then on the employment history section is try to include 2 to 3 interesting points per role. Now, the more interesting those are, the more you have to talk about, etc. As you go through some of your older jobs listed, or at the end of the second, or possibly even into the third page, then you probably will include 2, possibly even down to 1 interesting point per role. Now, don't cut and paste from your current job description and just dump it into the CV itself, because readers, when they read that one of your duties in customer service is to liaise with customers, well, that's pretty obvious. And if you just have a load of cutting pasting from your job descriptions, then it looks like you haven't spent any time doing your CV, and you're just not really interested in your roles. So not a good look for you during any interviews. So what you want to do is you want to focus on what you've actually achieved in those roles. For example, instead of saying when you're working in customer service, for example, that you liaise with customers on a daily basis, which is kind of what every customer service person does, instead say something on the lines of managed first point of contact for up to 20 clients on a regular basis, or something which is higher than the team average, etc. And if you've got any awards, or if you've got any sort of interesting achievements that are like really good, then put those in as well. Achievements are great in CVs. No one wants to read the job description from your previous jobs when you go for interview. So make sure you have something interesting to read, and when the interviewer looks at something interesting, he's more likely to ask you questions on that and get more information out of that. So it just makes the interview a lot more interesting for both parties. Now, what you need to do as well is show any large gaps in your employment history. So we're talking sort of 3 months or over. If you took time out to do anything, whatever it is, just get that in there. Otherwise, there will be questions, and they'll be wondering if you've got your employment history down correctly, if it's a bit all over the show. Also, don't worry too much if you have had a lot of jobs over a short space of time, but do be prepared to field any questions from an interviewer on why you jump from job to job so many times. Quite often it's because maybe you preferred to do contract work, which is fine, but any employer is looking for at least sort of 2 years of service out of you as a sort of minimum. So if they see every 3 months or 6 months you change jobs, you need to have a pretty good reason why you've been doing that. Otherwise they'll be less inclined to hire you. So show any large gaps, and make sure that if you do have quite a lot of job hopping going on, you have a pretty good reason for it. Any smaller gaps that get picked up on by a interviewer, just make sure you're able to speak about those. And that brings us on to tip 5, which is know your own CV. You need to be able to answer questions on any of the points in your CV. So if an interviewer asked you something and you stand there looking all blank and confused, it doesn't really look good on you. So make sure you know your own CV. Make sure you're as honest as possible. You try not to bluff your ticket completely and put in any qualifications or job roles that you never had or never did. Because quite often interviewers may start asking you questions on that, and if they detect that your answer is a bit iffy, or if you look a bit confused, or if you're not too sure, they may start even pressing with more questions and really put you in a tricky situation. And that's it for the second video in the episode, where we pretty much focused on the CV writing itself. Join me for the third and final episode, where we have a look at things from an employer's perspective to see whether they choose to take your CV and you, of course, through to interview or not. So until then, everyone, I hope you all have a fantastic day.